table, and we pray that you would encourage them, that you would strengthen them, that you would give them energy. We thank you for the things that they do on the scene and behind the scene, and we commit this time to you and these people to you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the month of January is over. The winter is progressing well for Manan. No heavy snowfall yet, but there's a lot of winter left. And we see other communities, especially in Newfoundland, struggling to keep their walks and driveways clear and trying to find transportation to and from work. The Manan 5 is doing well to keep up with the traffic, but we must remember people are rescheduling appointments and shopping trips for when the adventure returns. Council wants to thank the truckers for working together so that the ferry is available to car traffic. We don't have any updates on the adventure at this time. Next thing is disclosure of conflict of interest. No disclosure, but I will stress again what Pete was talking about before the meeting. Would you please speak up, even if you have to holler so people can hear you? Okay, thank you. The adoption of the minutes of January the 6th, 2020 and January the 16th, 2020 special meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I will move that we adopt these two issues of minutes as circulated.
You heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Moses. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Additions to the agenda. Addition is a sales quote for recycling waste containers. Can be open for discussion. And additions, general operating, beers, Neil's, PC, annual audit, $11,500, and home hardware, January statement, $4,742.48.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor, if I may. The first one, is that have to be in closed session, or is that just a... There's no quotes or bids or anything in that regard? Okay. Okay, thank you.
I'll move the additions.
It's been moved by Councillor Cheney that we add the additions. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Morse. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. What are they going to be under? $13.1. And the quote is 11.3. Now we have the RCMP report. We have Corporal Curtis McCann.
Good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Council members. Apologies for missing last month's, but I have the stats for last month so I can go over them at this meeting. I'll just get right into them. So December 2019, the criminal code stats were 17 criminal code offenses or files for service, 3 assault files, 3 criminal harassment files, 1 trespass at night file, 1 mischief file, 1 driving while prohibited or suspended, 5 uttering threats files, 1 disturbing the peace file, and 2 breach of conditions. No federal statute files, so no drug offense files for the month. 35 other files, the bulk of those actually make up false alarms or miscellaneous 911 calls, and they were actually from the North Head Wharf. Seemed to be a problem with one of the lines there. I think we got 10 calls just for that line in the month for some reason. But I think since that time it's been fixed. Assistance to general public, there was 4 files. Assistance to other agencies, 1. 1 for Immigration Refugee Protection Act, 1 for Coroner Act, 1 Child Family Assistance Act, 1 provincial statute trespass act, 2 for mental health calls, 2 suspicious person calls, and 7 for police certificates. For our provincial statutes, there was 14, 2 check stops, 11 tickets or warnings, and 1 complaint for other moving traffic, 1 traffic collision that was reportable damage, 1 non-reportable, and 1 off-road vehicle collision. So that was December 2019. That's the stats for that. Any questions for December?
Seems like they're a rough bunch of people.
That's a pretty quiet month, actually. I mean, some of the calls are unfounded too. It sounds like sometimes a lot, but sometimes we go and there's actually nothing criminal to it. So.
Your North Head Wharf for your false 911 calls.
Yes.
Do you know which wharf that was, the ferry or the fisherman's wharf?
No, it was the Fisherman's Wharf. It kept coming in as 10 Fisherman's Wharf, but there was no building there. It might have been, my explanation from Bell is it might have been a camera line, and it was for some reason dialing 911, which is common, old phone lines, it happens. So eventually we knew this, so we just weren't even responding to it because we knew there was no emergency, there's no actual phone line there. And I think we're up to 10 for that month, but this month we have none from that location, so it seems to be fixed.
Okay.
For January 2020, to start the new year, we had less calls for criminal code. We have 12, 1 assault file, 1 sexual assault file, 2 theft under files, 3 theft over files, 1 mischief, 2 uttering threats files, and 1 fraud less than 5,000. No federal statute files, 30 for other calls for service. The bulk of those are police certificates. There was 13 for the month. The other only down to 5 911 or false alarms. 1 assist to general public, 1 assist to other agency, 2 crime prevention, 2 offender management. I'm not sure if we've had any since I've done these talks, but basically if someone's released on conditions, we do an offender management file. Let's say they're on curfew or house arrest, we do regular checks on them to make sure they're abiding by those conditions. So that's what happens. 1 animal call, 1 provincial trespass act call, 2 missing person, 1 suspicious person, and 1 municipal bylaw call. 7 provincial statutes. There was 5 tickets or warnings, 1 off-road vehicle act call, 1 traffic violation, 1 non-moving traffic, 2 motor vehicle collisions that were reportable, 1 motor vehicle collision with an injury, and 3 motor vehicle collisions that were non-reportable. The only other thing I wanted to talk about tonight is restorative justice. We used to have a committee on the island. Unfortunately, that no longer is the case, so we've kind of lost our restorative justice committee, which is a shame. We kind of made a commitment from the RCMP to send them some more files, which hasn't been, we haven't been doing in the past. We had some files going to come their way, but just, I think generally with the lack of files going their way, they just didn't see a need to kind of be open. So we kind of lost our restorative justice committee for now, anyway. Any questions at all?
Did you say both December and January there were no federal statutes?
Right. Yeah.
That seems low.
I
comparatively.
think I talked about this a couple meetings ago. It's just we're not getting the information from the public at this point, and that's what we need to. I mean, there's always going to be files that are generated somehow. That's generally low. Where we start to get into a little bit higher numbers is when we are receiving information from the public, and that's the bottom line for drug files. Is that's how you build your file. You have to have some kind of information. People can be anonymous. People can just call in. There's suspicious people meeting somewhere, and we go check it out. And again, they don't need to provide their name, even if they're calling in suspicious person complaint. It can be an anonymous complaint, or they can talk to us anonymously from like continuing to deal with the same person to get information about what's going on as far as drugs. So that's part of the problem right now. It is a small community. It's hard for people to talk about people that they know, but in order to make a change for drugs in the community, that's what needs to be done.
I have a question. You say that you no longer have a restorative justice committee, is how you put it.
Yes.
Are you currently looking for volunteers, or would like to have volunteers, and who would you like to have? I guess that's the question.
I'm not sure. It was kind of external to us. It wasn't something that we ran. We do
Okay.
have someone from the mainland that would come over and do restorative justice sessions. Her name's Lisa Williams. She does school presentations sometimes. So if we do have the need to have restorative justice, she will, of course, come over and do them. It was just nice to have a committee of people, local people, to run these restorative justice sessions. There is some training to it, and
I took part in one like 10 years ago, and I never was asked to be part of it or anything, but as a member of council, I felt it was good to know what it was about, I guess.
so there was a committee that was formed.
At that time, but like I said, we're talking 10 years ago, so I wasn't sure what was all involved. So, but if we
Yeah.
wanted, it was a good program, certainly a good alternative.
It
And
is.
It's something that both parties, the victim and the accused, must be willing to participate in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I like it. Generally, if we have a file, there's no real resolution between two parties. One person goes to court if they're charged, and the other person, the victim, they don't really get that satisfaction of talking to the person that's charged or could be charged. Here, both parties are sitting down. It's usually for minor files that we do run a restorative justice session for, and at least there's some kind of resolution to the problem. And people can generally move forward a little bit better when there's restorative justice.
One more question I may ask on this file, if I may. Would it be possible for you in the future in another council meeting to kind of say what's required in order to make it possible again?
For restorative justice?
Yes.
This just happened, there was a meeting, I believe it was last week,
Mhm.
so it's pretty fresh. And I just haven't had a chance to talk to
Exactly.
the committee yet,
No.
so.
Great.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eight, old business. 8.1 is the Wellness Center update, operating expenses. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some of us are still trying to get our heads around the cost of running a wellness center here on the island. And Councillor Cheney and myself have met with our rec director and our CAO and talked things over and put some numbers out there and tried to get a handle on it. And Councillor Cheney was good enough to put it on paper for us, and you guys have it in your package here. And this is just an estimate, and it's just a place to start the conversation, really. Because we're not sure of all the numbers, and we just are looking for a lot of input yet. And since then, Silk Stevens has thrown some numbers at us also, and they've sent us the estimate for replacing our pool. So there's quite a bit to look at here. So I don't know if this would be better seen to in a meeting sometime, another evening or something, like a special meeting of some sort, and just look over what Silk Stevens has sent us and what Councillor Cheney's put down here, and try and fathom this out a little bit.
Comments?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, as we get closer to the time when we could have some announcements, it's good to, or whatever comes out, it's good to just review where we were and where we are now with the federal and the provincial, and now our only 7% municipal contribution. There's a $7.1 million facility for $497,000. Seems to me it's something you really want to look at. It's quite favorable. But it's going to take more than just this meeting tonight. We can deal with this and ferret this out, and we could stay till 10 o'clock just on this. So I think that it behooves us to get together as we get closer and closer to the timeline to review the figures which we feel are practical for Graham and Ann, realistic, and those which were given us by our consultant, and get the dust off the file and sharpen a pencil.
Mr. Mayor, when I looked at the agenda and I was talking to the CAO earlier, I asked him, I said, hopefully we don't have to make any decisions about this tonight, because I must echo feelings of my fellow councilors so far. This is a lot to take in.
I'll do.
And there's definitely, and even as detailed as this is, there's still other things, I'm sure there's things on there to discuss besides that maybe no one has thought of. And I certainly echo that it's worthy of a separate meeting. In fact, if I had my personal preference, I'd like to do an evening meeting so that we could take some real serious time to do it, because I think over a dinner meeting, personally, it would be quite restful. This is a serious project. This is the biggest project we'll take on in a generation.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with the councilors that have spoken, and I will move that we forward this to an information meeting to be announced, and we can get together.
Well, I see one thing wrong with it already starting out. The village's share is 497, the Ruby's gonna put in 100, so there's the 397.
There you go. That's where we need to meet.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of like what I talked about.
So you heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Moses. Do we have a seconder? You pick a date?
I did not pick a date. I'll leave the CIO to do that.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
So are you picking a date?
Sort of
Sunday
indicated. Sort of
You
indicated.
can do it anytime now. The
Yeah.
Super Bowl's over with. So, okay, we do have a motion, and the CAO will set the date at a later time. Question?
It's all good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 10-minute open session.
Can I just say something? First of all, I'd like to just say that I appreciate you guys in relation to letting us have the Castell Hall as a chaplain of Action Ministries. It has been a wonderful thing for the community, and had it not been for you people that okayed that, we wouldn't be where we are, and so many people have been helped. And so I want to say thank you on that. The other thing I want to just quickly say is in relation to the RCMP, I have done 6 cases for restorative justice, so I'm very much interested in that. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 10 is delegations or special speakers, and we have Eastern Charlotte Waterways, Brianna Cowie to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and councilors. Thank you so much for having me to speak this evening. I really do appreciate it. I had prepared a presentation, but unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties on my part, I'm just going to have to give a bit of a brief verbal update regarding the climate adaptation plan for the village. So we have recently completed the Southwestern Regional Climate Action Plan for all of Southwestern New Brunswick. That was provided to the Regional Service Commission and to the Climate Secretariat through the Department of Environment and Local Government. And now we're in the concluding phases of continuing and finishing those municipal climate adaptation plans for the 4 remaining Charlotte County municipalities, the village of Grand Manan being one of them. So within the adaptation plans, and I will provide a copy of my presentation as well as the completed plan for council to review, we do have the climate risks. So we have very extensive climate risk data. That's wet area mapping for precipitation events for 50 millimeters, 100 millimeters, and 200 millimeters, as well as sea level rise projections for 2030, 2050, 2080, 2100, and all of those with storm surge events as well. So that's what the most up-to-date IPCC AR5 climate data and the most up-to-date New Brunswick LIDAR. We have sourced this data from many of our academic partners at UNB, and as well as through the Secretariat and through a lot of really expert consultants. So that is giving us a very complete picture of the climate risks in this region. So what we've done with that data is we've used property assessments to sort of get the general incurred costs for projected climate damages associated to properties in Grand Manan, which will be available through the plan. We have also started to work with Horizon Health to do a social vulnerability index. So that's looking at vulnerable populations. So seniors who live alone, low-income families, single-parent households, youth, elderly, immigrants, newcomers, all of these people have been flagged as high risk to climate impacts. Getting a general idea around what those vulnerable populations look like, and then coming up with adaptive measures as well. We've also met and talked with New Brunswick Power, so NB Power, and they've shared with us generating distribution line data in switchyards and substations, and we've taken our climate risk data and we've overlaid that onto that so that we have a general understanding of flooding risk to major energy infrastructure in the region, including Grand Manan, so that'll be included in the plans as well, and we've shared that data back with NB Power, so they're kind of working on their end. We've also worked with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. We have extensive climate risk data. They provided us with extensive road infrastructure and culvert data. We did the mapping that indicates major areas for flow rates and flow channels, and where those culverts will need to be changed and where they'll need to be upsized and upgraded. Alternatively, also with the town, you guys are currently undergoing an asset management plan, and we're working to ensure that our climate risk data is going to be included into that as well. And then within the overall plan, there's a multitude of different adaptation actions, anything ranging from policy to planning statements to project-based, as well as community and education products. So the plan will be available likely within the next week, and I'd like to take an opportunity, if council is willing, to circulate that plan to council for your feedback prior to us bringing it into the community for the community feedback as well. One last thing I'd like to mention is that we have collected a lot of climate data and a lot of community data over the last year, and what we're working on right now is we're going to house that onto one major website, and we're going to use it as a one pit stop essentially for community members, municipal officials, government officials, industry, whatnot, to have a really good understanding of what climate change is going to look like in the region. So all of our climate risk data will be there, all the community profiles for Charlotte County, all the adaptation projects we've been working on with stakeholders in and around the area, and all things can do. There's also a very extensive residential homeowner guide. So that's building for climate change and preparing for climate change. So that's sort of building your home's resiliency to flooding, to wildfires, things like that. So what we're really trying to do is measure the overall vulnerability, and then of course measure the adaptive capacity of the region as well. And once we identify where those gaps are, we're hoping to be able to then start a very intensive education program with the community now that we've done that research. I'd also like to mention that we are also working with the Gulf of Maine Institute around fisheries adaptation. So we're doing future species distribution models looking at lobster, herring, and scallops in the Bay of Fundy, and then we're measuring the social vulnerability of that for the economic sector, especially for fisheries around here, and what that's generally going to look like hopefully in the next 50 to 100 years. That's a bit of a longer term project, but I thought it was worth mentioning since Grand Manan is quite reliant on the fishery industry. Anyway, that's quite an overview. I hope that wasn't too quick. I did have a presentation I'm going to share with Amy and Rob. And of course, once the plan is circulated, I really would welcome any feedback you guys have on it, and we're going to get in the community probably in March. And of course, I'll take any questions as well.
Phew. You've done very well.
That's a lot. Frankly, it is. So I'm tasked with two things. One, I talk exceedingly fast, and I'd like to apologize for that, but also it's a lot of things to sort of compress into a very short presentation. So the Southwest Plan is about over 100 pages. It's quite extensive. We will be sharing that with municipalities as well. We're just working with designers right now to get that finished product, that nice clean look. And the municipal plans will also be included in that as well. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long journey. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
New business, 11-1 speed limit review, Councillor Morse.
I've been approached about the speed limit coming into Grand Harbor from Seal Cove. It's been, the 50 has started in the same spot since well before I got my license, which believe me was not yesterday. That area has grown up a lot over that time. There's been businesses there. There's a lot of new families that have moved in. And it was suggested that perhaps it would make sense if the 50 was back further coming into Grand Harbor. So I would like to make a motion that we have DTI review the speed limit coming into Grand Harbor from Seal Cove.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Moses. Question? How far back do they want to go?
Miller's Pond Road is kind of, I thought, sort of a divider there. The houses start right along that section along there. I don't know, I'm open to suggestions on that, but that was sort of what I had in
Could
mind.
we include that DTI put their recommendation in for where it should be?
I think that would be very appropriate.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Harm reduction, Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a little update on the harm reduction front. The sharp boxes that the village had purchased are here, and they'll be distributed around once the best locations are settled on. There's 6 of them to be put out. Danielle Wilkerson will be taking over as our new mental health and addiction nurse. And Diane Kearns of Avenue B and Kate Harlan of Recap St. John are coming over February 19th. And they're hoping to get together with council for a lunchtime meeting maybe. We tried this last fall, and the wind, it did blow, and they never made it over. So they're hoping to get over on the 19th and would like to meet with us. Avenue B and Recap are centers for research, education, and clinical care of the at-risk populations. They provide access to screening, treatment, and prevention, and they work on the ground with people that are at risk. So they'd really like to get together with council, and I think it'd be good for us to talk with them, the situation we have on the island, and just help each other out.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Did you say Daniel Wilkinson is new addiction and mental health services?
Yeah,
person?
yes.
That was a similar position that Eric Green's wife had before. We're talking here probably 10 years ago, probably.
So,
So just kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. And what is her title again? Like, is addiction, so she's just a representative?
Mental health.
Mental health, and
addiction nurse.
nurse, so, okay, thank you.
Okay, then the next thing is our Recreation Director's report. Oh, sorry, about that. Sorry about that. Is the quote for the recycling waste containers?
Yes. This is just a proposal for council to mull over and hopefully make a decision. The last fall is when our trash barrels were taken up. There was quite a bit of dissatisfaction how the barrels perform. We have 7 trash bales that have trash and recycle on our inventory that we got from Sarah Griffin's donation from a project the school did last year. Three of them were distributed around Grand Manan last year and were well received. They're very substantial. What I would suggest that this quote is for 18 more of those containers. And the reason that I could say that that's quite possible is if we get these, then we could put it on to the recreation people to maintain them. Chris and I have already discussed this. Probably one-way discussion from me to him, but that's up to him to say that. And we have some extra money in the pavement at the transfer station that I've been told that we don't have to use. We could use that, get that from gas tax money, which is already on the books right now to go that way. And we have a little over $6,500 on the budget for putting out to service the other barrels. If we get 25, we usually put out 42 barrels.
According to who counts them?
Well, there's a debate on that.
No, it's not 42.
The contract is for 42. And that's proposal. It would be, these things are very good. You can't put too much trash in them. They're solid. You can't take the top off. Only way you can get in them is with a key. And they're weighted. You could have 2 guys to manhandle them and that type of thing.
So you're suggesting that these would replace the barrels?
That would be taken away, yeah.
And if we get these 18, we'll have a total of 23,
25.
25.
Do you know how much they hold? Like, you say that they're not gonna hold what a barrel holds, but.
I think the 35 gallon, I believe, is,
Standard barrel's 45 gallons,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
And there's
That's
one
for
slot
one-
for recyclables and one for garbage?
that's correct.
Yeah.
And this quote is on a 20% off. They're all, it stopped at their offer ended on the 31st of January. I talked to them and said, we got a meeting tonight. I'd like to get council's blessing if we go forward. I said, that's fine and dandy. The offer's still there till the end of the week.
So did you want a yay or nay on this tonight?
Pardon me?
Did you want a yay or nay on this
Well,
tonight?
yeah,
or-
it's either go with this, or we have to vote for a contract.
Right,
Where did I see one of these units? Up at the transfer station?
yeah, there's a bunch up there.
There was one at Sandy Beach last year. And I think,
But there is some up the,
yeah,
He's
there's 4 up to
Yeah.
Bill's place at the transfer station. Yeah.
still in the package.
They're,
Those are paid for, yeah.
so they're plastic, which of course will degrade with UV.
They're fiberglass, yeah.
Looks like in 4 years they would pay for themselves.
That's a good.
4 times 4 is 16, you're,
Yeah.
And plus there too, another thing too as well, as we've discussed with this before, things would be more under our control to make sure it's done right. Correct?
One of the possibilities, for sure.
being on the specs as far as guarantee.
Pardon me?
I know there's never life cycle expectancy, but
No, I have no idea.
there's,
No,
should last hopefully 5 years.
yeah.
But the proper way to go about that, if we decide to go this, is typically, like Fishman, for example, don't replace all 375 traps. They usually get, so every year we allow to get a couple, and then things would rotate according to they were needed as well, so.
Oh, they're very attractive, that's for sure.
They've been very.
They're dog-proof too, aren't
Well, yeah, nothing to get into them. Plus, they've been very successful and very popular in other communities have tried it, so. I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we set the quote.
You heard the motion by Councillor Fitzsimmons, Councillor Sturgeon. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second for you.
I already had you in there.
You had me in there.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question?
What size is the opening on them? Like, is it for like hand trash? It's
Yeah.
not for
Yeah, you
stuffing?
No.
Can't get
Good.
anything from the
That
home.
discouraged that little practice.
Yeah.
Any other question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. But we must remember, we can only spend that money once. And it's the first of the year. There's 11 more months to go.
You're in fine shape, Mr. Mayor.
You say we're in fine shape?
You're in fine shape.
He's the Minister of Finance. For now, anyway.
That's right.
So now we can move on to our Recreation Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'll just say that my report is a lot lighter. I had an awful lot of papers to do with the Wellness Center, operation review, existing pool, repairs, etc. Now that we're going to talk about that at a different meeting, I can certainly put that aside. But just a couple things to touch on. We're pleased to announce that during the March break that we got Go-Go Gymnastics coming back again. The March break camp is going to run during the March break, which is March the 2nd to the 6th. It's got 2 different age groups. One age group is 18 months to 3 years, which the weekly registration for them is $70. Then we have a second age group, which is age 4 to 11. Their weekly rate is $150. This is something we've always looked at year after year. Last year it looked like it was going to go ahead, but kind of fell apart last minute. So we're lucky this year to have a community lead that's kind of taken this thing by the horns. Kate Benson has kind of taken on that role, so we really appreciate Kate's time and effort to make this happen. The village is going to work with them the best we can to try to make this as easy for local residents as we can. We've blocked the gym off for the entire week of March break for that event, as well as we're going to do help with the registrations, which we'll do them here at the office to make it easier for locals. The last couple of years they've had to call and register over the phone with GoGo in Fredericton, which requires a credit card, which, as we all know, not everyone has a credit card. But to make things easier here at the office, we now have the debit machine, which we can take the money here, keep track of everything, and we'll work with Kate and GoGo to help bring that event back. It's a very well-attended thing. It's good for all the kids to have something to do over the March break. The second thing is, again, we're looking at the 4th annual Nick Hugger Memorial Hockey Tournament. The planning for that has already started. That will happen this year on March 27th to 29th. Again, registrations will take place here at the office. Proceeds from that event go towards the scholarships at the school. We have the Nick Hugger Memorial that's given out to the grade 12 students, as well as a portion of that also goes to minor hockey, which helps fund the minor hockey annual scholarship as well. I don't know how many of you have been up by Victoria Park lately, but kind of phase 1 of the new outdoor courts has been complete. The ground prep was finished, a lot of dirt was hauled out, a lot of good stuff was brought back in. They've done a lot of work compacting it, putting a top on it. So the plan right now is to let that sit for the winter. That way there in the spring, Dutchmen can come back in with their transits, reshoot the levels to make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. If not, they'll be able at that time to put a little bit more stuff back on it to bring the elevations where it has to go, and hopefully be able to get the rest of the project underway as early as possible. First thing being the paving, and then of course the fencing, as well as the special coat that goes on top. I guess the biggest thing for discussion tonight is the Seal Cove Playground. It's been discussed the last few meetings. There was a presentation made to council, I think back in November, by there was Susan Valentine and Susan Benson were appointed from their playground committee to come in and make the presentation to council. Since that time, Councillor Turner, Councillor Morse, and myself met with Susan and Susan here at the office. Brainstorm about how the best way to proceed. Some of you may remember with the meeting that the council had with our MLA that it sounded like there may be some funding available for that project. RDC currently has a project under Family Youth Capital Assistance to help with things like that. Normally it's a program that has a maximum contribution of $50,000, which is a match. We actually were able to tie into that for the outdoor project. But with playgrounds, there's a stipulation on that they only receive up to a maximum of $15,000. But the good news is there was no matching for that. It was just an automatic gift for those that applied and were awarded that. So it sounds like, reading between the lines, it sounds like that group has a chance to apply for some funding still in the 2019 budget, because their year end doesn't happen until I believe in March. So we've got a chance to get a kick at the can for the 2019 as well again in 2020. So we have an application all filled out with 2 phases. The first phase being the ground preparation, which is a couple of rock retaining walls, one along the beachfront and another rock wall kind of separating the parking area from where this new beach area is. And then phase 2 would be the actual playground structure itself, as well as I believe they threw on some picnic tables. So the big question is I know the presentation was made to council, and council said that they were behind the project, but now it's kind of time to discuss how behind it we are. Right now, with my calculations, according to the quotes with the application that we have with the armor stone, the equipment, the installation, and the freight, it looks like we're up to a total of about $50,342. Hopefully, with the government contributions, we can get hopefully upwards of $30,000 from them to go towards that, which should help reduce the cost down to about $20,000. That committee has also made an application to the Rotary Win-Win Committee That committee picks 13 different bursaries or different charities that they offer that money to. So they've made an application to that, and typically that runs around the $5,000 mark if they're awarded. But none of these programs, other than the Rotary Win-Win, the Family Youth Capital Assistance Program with RDC has to be applied by the village. So my name is on the application. It's all filled out, but there's a spot in here for our contribution towards the project. We've discussed it back and forth in emails, and I went back through the notes and I talked to Alyssa here in the office about back when we were doing the Castalia Playground. As you all know and remember, Megan Greenlaw took it upon herself and she went around and fundraised and come up with pretty much the complete total amount that we needed for that. So I went back through and looked, and at the time, the village's contribution to that project was $10,400. So I believe this money really isn't in the budget this year, so after talking to the CEO McPherson, after our one-sided conversation about the trash barrels, we came to the conclusion that it may have to be an amended application for the gas tax fund. Currently, right now, the current gas tax agreement doesn't have that in there. So I think at that time, my recommendation would be that if this is something that council wants to do, that we look at possibly matching the contribution we made back in 2018 to the Castalia project for $10,400. This committee also has committed to doing fundraising. So we're hoping that the fundraising goes better than planned, and they may not need that whole thing, but worst case scenario, we might be looking at about $10,000. So at that point, I'll leave that open for discussion. And maybe Councillor Morse or Councillor Turner could chime in on their point from the meetings that we've had in the emails back and forth, just to kind of give their 2 cents worth if I've missed anything.
I think you covered it well. I think it's good to see the community group sort of taking the lead and taking the interest in it, and they are very committed, I think, to fundraising and trying to contribute to it as well. I mean, you talked about this, I think you said through emails, but I think the $10,000 is a reasonable contribution from the village towards having a park in Seal Cove, would be my personal opinion.
I'd like to know who was on the committee that made these decisions.
Which one? The Seal Cove Committee or our committee?
The Seal Cove Committee.
Oh.
Councillor Sturgeon and I attended 2 meetings.
Around there, Mr. Mayor, yes. That's been some time ago.
Yes, there were 7 or 8 people there. And I was never invited back to another meeting. They put out a questionnaire, who wants a playground in Seal Cove, but they didn't state where. And anybody would be stupid if you voted that you didn't want a playground in Seal Cove. But there was 2 places that was up. Would it be at the Ball Diamond or would it be at the Sand Beach? And it was never mentioned in the I don't know what word I want, that they wanted people to comment on whether you wanted a playground in Seal Cove, but they didn't state where.
But I think we talked about it after we had the presentation back in the fall, October, November, whenever that was. And we had supported the concept of having a playground at the Sand Beach at that point. So to me, this seemed like the next logical step is, you know, how we go about getting the fundraising. And that was part of our motion, I believe, at the time, was that there would be a lead from the community itself. And they certainly have stepped up and appear to be doing that. So, you know, barring going back on our motion last fall, I think that this is probably the next logical.
I just asked the question,
No.
who was the committee?
I assumed it was the group that was here in the fall, and I can't remember beyond Susan, who else was here with them at the time, quite honestly. But it appeared to me that there was support from within the community for it, and it seemed like a logical place for it. But I'm not a Seal Culver, so, and I don't have children, so there you go.
Okay, you making a motion?
I would make an motion.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morse, that the village contribute 10,000
Yeah, 10,400
Yeah,
to a maximum.
To a minute.
Maximum.
for the playground at Seal Cove. Do you have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Turner. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Where's the money coming from?
Oh, you can find it. Take it out of the gas tax.
Some of your gas taxes we can only spend once.
Perhaps when we get closer to having to contribute the money, we can talk about where it comes from.
Probably will have to cancel the garbage containers. Library report. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to go over some highlights from the library. Very busy October to December. Preschool story time resumed for a new season with 29 in attendance. The STEAM into Fall Children's Program held on October 16th involved STEAM activities for multiple ages. Tanya resumed her monthly travel to the Boys and Girls Club for story time to their preschool program. The Hackmatack Book Club resumed its 2020 season with Grand Manan Community School Grade 5 class led by volunteer Ramon Small. They continue to work with the community school instructors to accommodate special needs students also at the school. Again this year, families enjoyed the Gingerbread Village Family Workshop. Many comment how this sort of kicks off their Christmas season. It's very well attended and lots of fun had there. The weekly club chess club is going again with Sandor. And through connections with GMC's teachers, we have a small group of grade 6 students actually volunteering at the library for short periods during their lunch break. So that's always nice to have the kids in there just working away and doing things in the library. And also the annual Fall Scholastic Book Fair. We raised $1,183. So that's about average for the year. For what we usually get in the book fair, but all in all, it's been a pretty busy start to the year, or to the end of the year actually, from October to December. So anyway, it's just been really good and really busy there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fitzsimmons. Any questions for Councillor Fitzsimmons? Okay, then. Approval to pay the following invoices of General Operating Fund. Piers Neal's Budget Surplus Matters, $3,105. Avenue B Harm Reduction Sharp Boxes, $1,553. Piers Neal Annual Audit, $11,500. And Home Hardware January Statement, $4,742.48.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I will move we approve those items as read.
You heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Moses. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 13.2, the General Capital Fund, Dutchman Contracting, Stanley Beach Work, $21,275.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pay Dutchman Contracting $21,275 from the General Capital Fund for Stanley Beach work.
You heard the motion by Councillor Cheney. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question? All I have to say on that is I've had Many good reports and compliments on the job.
Looks good.
Yeah, it does.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Finances requiring motion. Motion to transfer for RDC claim reimbursement. Motion to transfer $2,901 from the general operating fund to the general capital fund for RDC claim reimbursement on the pickleball courts.
Mr. Mayor, I so move.
Heard the motion by Councillor Cheney. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Moses. Question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to repay $49,000 from the general capital fund to the general operating fund. Mrs. Calder to explain.
Okay, so I made a mistake in our special meeting when we transferred our year-end transfers out of the budget. We wrote down to transfer them to the general capital fund. That's not okay. It was supposed to be capital reserve fund. We just wrote the wrong account down. We're not allowed to take that back. It's too late. So to put the money back in, when we do our budget for next year, we just have to take out twice as much and put it back in. So it's just money in, money out. We wrote down the wrong account name. It's not okay.
So do we need a motion?
We need a motion to take the money back out, put it in our general operating fund. Then when we do our 2021 budget, we'll take out 20,000 for the fire truck and 58 for the fire truck and 20 for the building.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we repay $49,000 to the general capital fund to the capital operating fund. General operating fund. Man, there's too many funds.
Say the right thing.
You heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Moses. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Morse. Question.
Just, go ahead,
No,
Mike.
I was gonna say, I just hope Alyssa leaves us a very clear, detailed list of instructions for the end of the year, what we're supposed to do.
It's just gonna give us a bigger surplus for 2019, so in 2021, we're gonna use that surplus of the extra 49 to double up our revenue for 2021, so nothing will,
We're giving ourselves money that we can't use.
that's right, that's right.
Councillor Sturgeon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, when similar things have happened in the past like this, what sometimes happens is that there's a motion to rescind certain motion that led to that.
Yep.
Is that needed or anything?
No,
in
I
that
spoke
regard?
to the accountant, she said it's already been transferred, just put the money back, and then we'll redo it when we do the budget for next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we go into closed session for personnel and property.
I would move we adjourn the closed session.
Heard the motion by Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Moses. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Call this meeting back into order after the closed session. We're in there to discuss increases for the staff and also surplus property.
Mr. Mayor, I will move that we offer a 2% across the board to all permanent staff, retroactive to January 1st of this year.
Heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Moses. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Surplus land.
Thanks, Scott.
I make a motion that we decline the offer for the surplus land.
You heard the motion by